Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, a loud explosion in Austin, Texas ends in a collapsed home and 6 people injured. More on what the fire department is saying as details on the emergency is revealed. At least 34 civilians are reported dead in the deadliest attack on Ukraine this year. Arian Pasdar has what President Trump says about the ongoing peace efforts. As more deadly plane crashes and near misses dominate headlines, should passengers be concerned? 2 aviation experts join us to explore. Diabetes impacts the daily lives of nearly 35 million Americans. How do our lifestyles and food choices play in? And what's the science behind the disease? NTD's Chris Beers tapped Brendon Fallon of Vital Signs to discuss. And in a rural town in Japan, kids race for a different kind of trading card. While Pokemon might be all the rage around the world, these kids are collecting something closer to home. How the new card game is connecting the town's youngsters with its elders.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer. At least 6 people are injured in Texas after an explosion leveled a 2-story home in Austin. Locals called in reports of a loud blast, and first responders rushed to the scene, pulling 3 people out of the residence. 2 were in critical condition, and 1 was seriously injured but stable. 2 firefighters also took on minor injuries related to the incident. Austin's fire department confirmed that the explosion damaged neighboring houses and downed power lines, cutting off electricity in the area. And we have breaking news from Pennsylvania. A 38-year-old man has been arrested in connection with a suspected arson case at Governor Josh Shapiro's residence. According to the governor's ex-post, the incident happened around 2 a.m. while he and his family slept inside the home. State police are investigating. President Trump took his annual physical health exam Friday, and the results are in. Navy captain and physician Sean Barbabella examined the president, and the results were shared online.
I've taken the cognitive test, I think, 4 times, and I've got nothing wrong. That's what the American people want, right?
The results summary states the president is in excellent physical and cognitive health, and that his active lifestyle helps him stay healthy. It also mentions that he has abstained from alcohol and tobacco his entire life. The report shows improvements from exams during the president's first term. His weight came down 20 pounds and his cholesterol levels have continued declining. The summary shows some physical ailments, but nothing that the doctor has deemed serious. Dr. Barbabella is a Navy doctor who has served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He earned both a Purple Heart and a Legion of Merit Award. He ran a Navy's health clinic in North Carolina before he became the president's physician. At least 34 people are reported dead in the deadliest attack on Ukraine this year. This as the U.S. keeps working with both sides to bring an end to the fighting. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the details and a warning. The following footage might be disturbing for some viewers.
First responders are seen attending to the site of a deadly attack in the Ukrainian city of Sumy on Sunday. Officials say at least 34 civilians are dead, while over 100 are injured. 2 Russian ballistic missiles struck the heart of the city early on Palm Sunday, as some were heading to church.
We just woke up. We plan to attend the service.
This footage shows one of the missiles making impact. President Volodymyr Zelensky is now demanding a tough international response toward Moscow.
They feel no fear, and that's why there are missiles. That's why there are 100 combat drones each night.
On Saturday night, President Trump commented on the ongoing peace talks with Russia and Ukraine.
Russia might be going, okay? And you're going to be finding out pretty soon, you know. There's a point at which you just have to either put up or shut up, and we'll see what happens.
Earlier this week, the White House said Trump's not happy with the way both sides have been handling the negotiations so far. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
President Trump has authorized the U.S. military to play a more direct role at the U.S.-Mexico border. It would give the military increased power to stop illegal immigrants. A memo authorizing the move says the military should use federal lands at the border to stop illegal immigration. It would mean the military could detain immigrants until federal agents arrive. The memo also allows for military activities like installing border barriers and other detection equipment. An important piece of land that would come into play is the Roosevelt Reservation, a strip that runs through the border states of California, New Mexico, and Arizona. The order does not apply to Native American territory. And in other news, the State Department says Kilmar Abrego Garcia is, quote, alive and secure. A senior bureau official said the man who was deported to El Salvador in error is currently being held in the Terrorism Confinement Center in El Salvador. An unsigned Thursday order from the Supreme Court says the U.S. government must facilitate the man's return to America. Here's what Trump said Friday.
If the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do that. I respect the Supreme Court.
And the lower court judge as well. He's been asking for
I'm not talking about the lower court. I have great respect for the Supreme Court. So I'm not I'm not totally well versed as to the specific case, but if they said to bring it back, I would tell them to bring it back.
And worth noting, El Salvador's president arrived in Washington yesterday. He's slated to meet with President Trump during the official visit. The U.S. and Iran have completed their first round of talks, and they're set to meet again on Saturday. Meanwhile, Israel continues to battle the Iran-backed Hamas terrorist group, recently launching an airstrike on another hospital in the Gaza Strip. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
Officials from Iran and the United States met in Oman on Saturday for talks about a possible nuclear deal. And after the discussions were over, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi gave details of the meeting, which he said was held indirectly.
I think the Omani foreign minister shuttled between the Iranian and U.S. delegations about 4 times, and the views of both sides were conveyed to each other.
Araghchi said the meeting was productive and lasted about 2.5 hours. The White House also released a statement after the meeting with Iran, saying, quote, the discussions were very positive and constructive. The U.S. and Iran are set to meet again for a second round of talks in about a week on Saturday, April 19th. America's main objective in the talks is to ensure that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon, while Iran has said that they would like to have sanctions removed from the country. On Saturday night, President Trump was asked how the talks with Iran were going.
Nothing matters until you get it done. So I don't like talking about it, but it's going okay. The Iran situation is going pretty good.
And then he said this.
I think.
Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, Israeli forces reported launching an airstrike on a hospital in Gaza City. Israel said the Iran-backed Hamas terrorist group used the hospital to plan and execute terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians and Israeli troops. Israel also said they took steps before the strike to mitigate harm to civilians. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The House passed a budget resolution to kickstart the reconciliation process, and Congress heard testimony from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on what happened on the Hill this week.
What is your reaction to the passage of the budget resolution and Senator Thune saying this morning that he commits to $1.5 trillion in spending cuts?
I think what we're seeing right now is that Republicans have agreed to gut Medicaid in this country and put many other programs on the chopping block.
All House Democrats voted against the budget resolution, and all but 2 House Republicans voted to pass a bill that would pave the way to extending the 2017 tax cuts.
Budget resolution simply allows us to start the actual process of reconciliation. And the House can then jam the Senate. Look, if they don't like the end results of the cuts that we end up negotiating in reconciliation, then they don't have to vote for it.
The budget resolution instructs House committees to find $1.5 trillion in spending cuts, while it only instructs Senate committees to find $4 billion in spending cuts. Pursuing the president's agenda, but the spending cuts are different from the Senate and the House. What's your take on this?
Well, there's a lot of pain in those cuts. Some people are looking at the end of their political career. Mr. Trump will survive it. He will continue on. But they're making a big decision and let's see if it's the will of their people.
Also this week, the House and the Senate heard testimony from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on President Trump's tariff plans.
Senator, do you think there's appropriate messaging from the administration on the fact that there might be many goals to these tariffs?
I would hope that with some of our allies, that the goal would be fair trade. With China, is the goal fair trade? Probably not. With China, probably it's a complete strategic reset.
And what is your reaction to President Trump using emergency powers to impose these tariffs?
Define what he means by emergency. And so I think everybody sees through it. I mean, he pretty much feels that he can act on his own, doesn't need the House or the Senate, and that he's going to continue, as long as they continue to lay down and they're in the majority and they ignore the legislative responsibility in co-equal branches of government, we're going to have a problem.
I think that Republicans will support Senator Wyden's bill to claw back tariff powers from the president.
No, not. I don't think. Let's face it. Chair Wyden has political motivations behind it. People like me that would like to come up with clawing back authority that's been conveyed by many Congresses is something I'm open to, but not Wyden's approach.
The House also passed this week the SAVE Act, a bill that would require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. The bill is now going to the Senate. It's also worth noting that this week, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik returned to the House Republican Conference as the chairwoman of the House Republican leadership, a newly created position for her to return to the leadership table. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Zooming in on China, will Beijing back down in the face of roaring U.S. pressure? If not, what cards do Beijing and Washington have left to play? NTD's Flora Hua tapped 3 China analysts for insight.
Li Jun worked in mainland China's TV industry from 1994 to 2014. That's when he fled the country's communist rule. He's an award-winning director and a senior television producer.
The current Chinese communist government resembles the Cultural Revolution era. Even under extreme pressure, mass starvation, or years of hardship, it refuses to back down. It relies on powerful propaganda, legal, and military systems to maintain control.
Another China analyst, Tang Jingyuan, has been a commentator for the Chinese language edition of NTD for years.
The Chinese Communist Party believes it has a unique advantage, what we might call a low human rights advantage.
That means the CCP is willing to subject the Chinese people to harsher circumstances and far greater suffering than it believes the U.S. will allow American citizens to endure.
The CCP sees ordinary people as expendable, like chives that can be cut down to the root, and doesn't care about their lives. In contrast, in the U.S., if citizens can't bear the pressure of inflation or economic hardship, they might take to the streets and force leaders like Trump to change policies.
Another reason Beijing might not back down is sluggish economy. Beijing's pandemic-era draconian lockdown measures severely damage its economy. Add to that a nationwide real estate crisis, huge debt, and tanking domestic consumption in recent years. Now, experts say the Chinese market's huge trade surplus with the U.S. and other countries has become its lifeline for survival.
What Trump wants isn't zero tariffs, but zero profit advantages for China. He wants to eliminate all the unfair advantages the CCP has in the U.S. market.
China's trade surplus to the U.S. roared from $83 billion in 2001 to over $200 billion a year. Since it joined the World Trade Organization, that number hit the highest point in 2018, when the trade surplus neared $420 billion. That's when Trump first decided to impose tariffs on Chinese goods. Despite that, the U.S. trade deficit with China remains high. Last year, it reached nearly $300 billion. So what can we expect if the U.S.-China trade war persists?
Realistically, with 100% tariffs, U.S.-China trade is essentially broken. No company can absorb a 100% tariff and still make a profit. I think this kind of trade decoupling only needs 90 days. 3 months, to cause serious damage. Why? Imagine you're an American business importing from China. If during those 3 months I can't do business with you, I have to find another supplier. Once these U.S. companies find alternative suppliers, the chance they'll return to doing business with China becomes very slim.
There's also another card that Washington hasn't yet played. Treasury Secretary Batson said he hasn't ruled out the possibility of delisting Chinese companies from U.S. stock exchanges.
These private Chinese companies are backed by powerful elites. If these companies get delisted by the U.S., those elites will go all out against Xi Jinping. The communist regime relies on these officials to enforce the suppression. If they start to feel they can't survive either, that becomes a very dangerous situation.
On the other hand, what tactics does Beijing still have up its sleeve?
There could be two possible outcomes. First, the Chinese Communist Party might shift all the blame for its economic failures onto the U.S. Its propaganda department will definitely do that. Second, it may try to divert public attention through war propaganda, or the threat of war.
Guo Jun is one of the founders of the Chinese edition of the Epoch Times.
Right now, China, as the manufacturer, producer, and seller, is in a very passive position. But if a hot war were to break out with the U.S., this excess production capacity could become an advantage. In times of war, the country with the strongest manufacturing capability could suddenly hold the upper hand.
Flora Hua, NTD News.
Coming up, as more deadly plane crashes and near misses dominate headlines, should passengers be concerned? Two aviation experts join us to explore. And diabetes impacts the daily lives of nearly 35 million Americans. How do our lifestyles and food choices play in? And what's the science behind the disease? NTD's Chris Beers tapped Brendon Fallon of Vital Signs to discuss that and more when we come back.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. I'd skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay." And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Aircraft mishaps and crashes seem to be dominating headlines lately. There was another tragedy yesterday when a small plane crashed in upstate New York. All 6 presumed dead. People are also still in shock and grieving the family of 5 that went down in the deadly sightseeing helicopter crash in New York. The crash in Florida's Boca Raton, near misses in the now infamous Reagan Airport in D.C. What's going on? Here with us now, Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst, and commercial airplane pilot Jason Kunish. Thank you both so much for being here. Now, Jay, incidents like these are very high profile. They raise concerns, but statistics show flying is still quite safe. So what is going on here? Is there an increase in deadly accidents and near misses, or is it just that the public is more attuned to it?
I think it's certainly that the public is more attuned to it. And keep in mind, you have to go back to February of 2012, the Colgan Air crash in Buffalo. We went from then until the DC crash without a major airline accident here in the United States. That is, as far as air miles, 13 trillion air miles flown without the death of a passenger due to a crash. Now, let's never forget that we did lose a passenger on a Southwest flight over Pennsylvania when there was an engine failure. But when you talk about 13 trillion miles between accidents, that's 28 million trips to the sun and back. So it's a significant number. And when you go that distance without really having an aviation disaster, which is, again, very rare, and then you have a situation where we had the DC crash, then we had that Philadelphia crash of the medical flight, and then you had the crash in Alaska just days later that claimed 10 more lives. It's all of a sudden now any aviation news is going to be front and center. And when you look at the general aviation accidents, and Jason knows this very well, they come across our desk on a weekly basis where we'll have 200-300 people, sadly, every year that will lose their lives in a general aviation accident. So it's really difficult to compare general aviation safety to commercial aviation safety. But if the question is commercial aviation still as safe as it has ever been? The answer to that to me is a resounding yes.
And Jason, as a commercial pilot, how are you viewing all of this? Should people be concerned?
I think it is to maybe use the word sensationalize a little bit. It's on the front of mind in a lot of people because it's been on the news lately. However, as was just stated, statistically, it is the safest way to travel. And there is a difference between commercial airline or aviation and then recreational. The airlines that we all travel with when we go see grandma for Thanksgiving and the sightseeing tours of helicopters. Those are 2 different arenas. In the airlines, there are many backups. Everyone is of course, safety is first and foremost. There's redundant systems that are built in not only to the scheduling, the operation, but the systems on the aircrafts themselves, that when you have, one engine go out, you have a backup. 2 engines go out, you turn into a glider. Worst case, you're having a real bad day. But there are backups. In general aviation, there's less of that, mainly because the aircraft that are flying are less complex. The systems are, not as redundant. Take, for example, the helicopter that just went down, unfortunately, in New York. That flies under different reasons why your commercial airline aircraft flies. There's a rotor, and when the rotor goes out, unfortunately, there's no backup. There's no glider for it to turn into like an airplane would. And so when something goes wrong, it goes catastrophically wrong, unfortunately. I think, though, that this is it's in the news. People are thinking about it, and when things like this now happen, people are eager to talk about it.
And expanding on that, Jay, after videos of that plane that landed upside down in Toronto, experts have been saying the #1 safety tip is to always wear your seatbelt. There's been some videos making the rounds, especially on social media, that the back of the plane is actually the safest place to be now if there is an accident. Is there a safest part of the plane, or is it down to whether or not one wears the seatbelt?
Well, I mean, there's times I could show you that the safest part of an airplane during an aviation accident, having done this for 33 years, would be the front of the airplane. And then there's instances where it's over the wing. And then there's other instances where it's in the rear of the aircraft. So it's very difficult to pick the safest spot, although most people would argue that, look, being near an emergency exit certainly is going to increase your chances when it comes to an emergency situation. But that plane crash we had in Toronto was really kind of a poster child of the safety enhancements that we've seen over the last 20 to 30 years with how seats are constructed and how we have the certain material inside aircraft that's resistant to flame, and all of the things that we've learned through the National Transportation Safety Board with each and every one of their accidents and then their subsequent recommendations to the Federal Aviation Administration to constantly strive to make aviation safer. And anytime that we have an accident or near accident, it is the charge of the NTSB and their all-star team, that's exactly what they are, is to identify the reasons so that we can honor the lives of those that were lost by making the necessary steps to make aviation even safer. And that happens all the time. But now if you have an aircraft that lands and the tire blows because of something that happens, it's automatically front news. It's a lot like when we had the Boeing situation with the Alaska Airlines situation, where any sort of thing that came out, we had to know if it was a Boeing airplane or not. It got so ridiculous that on bird strikes, I was being asked, Jay, it was a Boeing aircraft. And I'm thinking, what? Now the birds are after Boeing? We can always take steps far beyond where we should be. And I think that I never want to minimize the anxiety that people have when they travel. But am I hesitant, to get on an airplane that Jason or anybody else is flying commercially? Absolutely not. I know the training those men and women go through, and it's extraordinary. And believe me, those are the individuals I feel very comfortable with getting on a flight, and I won't hesitate a moment to get on any commercial flight here in the United States.
And Jason, on that safety aspect, it does seem that since the pandemic, there have been fewer flight options. Reports are saying there have been staffing shortages. Are you seeing that in the industry, or is that more of just what headlines are saying?
Yes, there is a staff shortage. I think though that it predates the pandemic by about 15 years. Historically, there's been a mandatory retirement age of 60 for commercial airline pilots. That in the early 2000s was pushed to 65 in an effort to keep skilled aviators in the cockpit. Some could argue that that was a good thing. Some argue that's not a good thing, that they want new talent coming in. Not to pick sides on it, that discussion is coming up now again because there is a shortage of trained, qualified pilots coming through the pipeline. You're not getting a lot of people from the military much anymore. Historically, the work rules and the schedules that airline pilots and other staff in the aviation industry are required to keep may not be great for family life, other things like that. So that all is changing, and that is maybe a tide that's turning. There are a lot of people who are starting to show more interest now in aviation, and that's a good thing. It's a great thing. It's going to keep the industry alive here for quite a long time. But a note also on the safety. The Delta thing that happened up in Toronto, no one died in that one. Everything went right. From the flight attendants, the first responders there at the airport. And so this industry is larger than just the aircraft you're on. There's dispatchers in cities and states far away from you. There's air traffic controllers sitting, watching your flight. There's pilots, there's mechanics, there's caterers, there's flight attendants. Everybody comes together as a system, and the system itself is safe, has been safe, and will continue to be safe here going into the future, because again, safety is front of mind on everybody. We're not releasing the parking brake to go on a flight to push back from the gate unless all of our checklists are done, all the maintenance is done on the aircraft that needs to be performed, and we feel confident that we can ourselves as operators of the aircraft are going to be able to get home to our families. We think about the people behind us, but as long as we make it, you make it, and that's still a reality now.
And Jay, I want to go back to one of your earlier points. With all of these near misses and crashes making the headlines, what would you say to those who are concerned about flying to their next destination?
Well, every day, commercially here in the United States, we'll have 2.5 million people that will fly. without incident. Yesterday, today, the day before, and just continue to go back. And when you look at that, that's not by accident. Just as Jason said, it's a chorus of individuals that are dedicated to one thing: safety. That's all we're about. And the staffing shortages are there. Yes, those are going to be headline type of things, but that does not mean a step back in safety. Airline layoffs are taking place right now. In fact, Southwest Airlines next week will be laying off 1,750 of their individuals as they try to become a more streamlined type airline through some of the changes that they're making. Does that represent a reduction in safety? Absolutely not. We know that we need more air traffic controllers. Steps are being put in place to try to make that happen. Jason mentioned the increasing the age of the pilots on the flight deck. Look, I want experience. If we can increase that age from 65 to a higher age, as long as individuals can pass the flight physical, I am all for it. Because when you've got experience on the flight deck, that's a great thing. And when people are flying, they should just relax, have a good time. Really, the biggest challenge is getting to the airport early. We're coming up on the busy summer travel season. Get to the airport 2 hours before departure. Make sure the airlines have a way of getting a hold of you. And if you're a savvy traveler, please buy your tickets as far in advance as you can. That locks your fare in and prevents you from having any of these issues with increasing fares. Because right now, airlines are reducing the number of their summer flights, and that means the fares, sadly, are going to go up.
And Jason, very quickly, as a pilot, what's your message to those who are maybe concerned about flying?
If you want to get somewhere safely, if you want to get somewhere in a timely manner, in comfort, fly an airplane. It beats driving.
All right, Jason Kunish, Jay Ratliff, thank you both so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Coming up, diabetes impacts the daily lives of nearly 35 million Americans. How do our lifestyles and food choices play in, and what's the science behind the disease? NTD's Chris Beers tapped Brendon Fallon of Vital Signs to discuss. And an exquisite forest or a web of galaxies. A look at the stunning images of a 3D map revealing what lies inside a tiny piece of the brain. That and more in just a minute here on NTD News.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. Shen Yun.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Next, a look at a group of diseases that almost 35 million Americans grapple with day to day: diabetes, and how much lifestyle and food choices might play in. NTD's Chris Beers tapped Brendon Fallon earlier to discuss. He's the host of Vital Signs, a health and wellness program on Epic TV.
Brendon, it's great to see you.
Great to see you, Chris.
What do you have for us today?
Today, an exciting topic. 1 in 10 Americans have suffering with diabetes. Most of that is type 2 diabetes, a disease that's still largely considered to be incurable. Once you have it, you're stuck with it for life, is largely the perception. I interviewed Dr. Jason Fung. He's a nephrologist, a kidney health specialist, and also a world expert in intermittent fasting and low-carb dieting. And here he's talking about a different perspective on insulin resistance, the hormone that gets the glucose into the cell, and a different idea of why in type 2 diabetes this isn't happening. And he's talking about this here in the context of type 1 versus type 2 diabetes.
So in type 1 diabetes, what you get is they're often present younger, and these people don't have insulin. So insulin is the hormone that allows your body to take in the glucose. So say you eat a slice of bread, you have all this glucose. The glucose goes from your stomach, it's absorbed in the intestines, goes into the blood. So all this extra glucose is in the blood. The body doesn't want all this glucose in the blood, so it releases the hormone insulin. Insulin then sort of allows the cells, like your muscles, your liver, your kidney, to take up this glucose, and then it will burn it for energy, which is great. If you don't have insulin, of course, then inside the cell there's no energy, and outside the cell there's all this sort of glucose. So what you have is this state of sort of internal starvation. What you'll see is people will lose weight because they can't take the sort of energy that's outside and bring it inside the cell. So they'll just keep losing weight until they die. So you see in type 1 diabetes, you see very skinny children who, if they don't get insulin, they will die. That's not what you get in type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes tends to present older and is sort of the majority of diabetes. We see 90 to 95% of diabetes these days is type 2 diabetes. And you don't see very skinny people, you see the opposite. You see very fat people and people with big fatty livers. They have a lot of abdominal obesities, their waist circumference is high, their body mass index is high. So you see the opposite. You don't see people that are starving as you do with the type 1 lack of insulin. Here, the insulin levels are too high, and there's still a lot of glucose in the blood. And the idea is that instead of a sort of underfill situation where you can't get the glucose into the cell, in this situation, the cell is sort of overfilled with this glucose. So that's why the glucose is still out in the blood, because you've got too much inside the cell already. The cell can't take any more. Just like, for example, if you have a sports bar, for example, it's Super Bowl Sunday, the sports bar is full, you can't cram any more people. So there's people outside the bar who want to get in, but they can't get in because the bar is full, right?
That sports bar analogy really helps anchor and ground this for me. Mm-hmm. So, as I understand it, his view of diabetes has shaped his way of treating it.
Yeah, definitely. And this isn't necessarily, it's not a new understanding. This is the American Diabetes Association actually published remission criteria for type 2 diabetes in the early 2020s. So it is recognized, but that knowledge hasn't really, pervaded the medical community to the maximum extent. There's still many people with type 2 diabetes who aren't aware of this. I mean, maybe it's not in every case it's reversible, but in a very large number of cases. And certainly Dr. Fung is applying this in his own practice. In this next soundbite, he gives a snapshot of if we look at this idea that too much glucose is the problem, it's not the cell dysfunctioning, it's just too much glucose, what do we then need to do to reverse that situation. And he highlights a study that shows this is possible.
Awesome. Let's watch that.
And if there's too much glucose, then there's really a very simple thing. You either have to put less glucose in, or you have to let your body burn that glucose that's there off, right? So you can start by cutting down the amount of glucose, which is carbohydrates, going in, as well as sugar, right? So fructose being sugar as well. You want to try and cut those down, or you can do things such as intermittent fasting, which is where you sort of don't put anything in and allow your body to burn off that glucose. Turns out that they're extremely successful. So, Dr. Unwin in the UK, he published his results in his patients over 8 years. And of the patients that followed his low carbohydrate sort of advice, about 50% of them went to a drug-free remission state. That is, they got off of all of their medications, and their blood glucose went down to a normal level such that they would be classified as not diabetic. And we saw this in our clinic. I'd have somebody who was on 100 units of insulin a day, massive amounts. I started them on, cutting their carbs and intermittent fasting. Within a month, I had them off of everything and their blood glucose low enough that they would be classified as non-diabetic. And this is after 10 years of taking insulin. They became not diabetic any further. A simple intervention.
It's amazing hearing him talk about this massive change in people's lives.
Yeah, and it's such a simple intervention, which is what he really emphasizes. It's seen there in the research. He's seeing it in his own practice. So this is possible. It's just a matter of really getting this knowledge out further.
Awesome. Brendon Fallon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
And for more details, check out NTD's Vital Signs with Brendon Fallon. The program zooms in on health and wellness in everyday life, connecting the dots for the big picture of our composite health. Find it on epictv.com by clicking the Talk Shows tab. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told CBS he has given food company executives 2 years to remove red 40 and other artificial dyes from their products. Kennedy detailed a meeting with executives from Kraft Heinz, General Mills, Tyson Foods, Kellogg's, Smuckers, and PepsiCo.
They said it's going to take us a while. For example, the CEO of Pepsi, which owns Doritos, said that in Doritos, people, the consumers like them to be very red, and we have not yet found a vegetable dye that we can match, but we're going to do it. And I said they all have to be out within 2 years.
Kennedy cited a, quote, grim inventory of diseases, including cancers and behavioral disease and neurological diseases like ADHD as a reason for the dye ban. Kennedy added during the interview that he would eliminate the generally recognized as safe standard, calling it the biggest villain for food safety. The health secretary last month directed the FDA to explore abolishing the rule, which lets companies include additives in foods without FDA review. In the same interview with CBS, Kennedy encouraged people to get the measles vaccine. He added that he and President Trump agree that people should have the choice and that some will choose not to get vaccinated. An outbreak of measles that started in Texas this year has climbed past 500 cases. Coming up, an exquisite forest or a web of galaxies. A look at the stunning images of a 3D map revealing what lies inside a tiny piece of the brain. And in a rural town in Japan, kids race for a different kind of trading card. While Pokemon might be all the rage around the world, these kids are collecting something closer to home. How the new card game is connecting the town's youngsters with its elders. That and more after the break.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A world of galaxies made up of near infinite connections. That's what scientists have discovered inside a piece of brain matter the size of a poppy seed. Researchers from the Allen Institute for Brain Science say they've plotted the most detailed functional map of an animal brain to date. Here's what they found.
An exquisite forest inside a speck. That's how electron microscopy expert Clay Reed, PhD, describes the most detailed brain map ever made. You're looking at a tiny section of the brain of an adult mouse. This diagram reveals the wiring that connects 84,000 neurons or brain cells as they fire off messages.
The brain is kind of structurally like a giant ball of spaghetti, right? You have all of these wires, they're all completely intertangled. It's a complete mess, except for at the ends of those pieces of spaghetti, that's where they actually talk to each other.
Forrest Coleman is one of the project's leading researchers. He explains how brain cells use branch-like fibers to send signals through connection points between the cells called synapses. This small sample reveals 500 million of them.
In order to be able to figure out what are all the parts of the brain and who's talking to who, we have to try to follow that spaghetti all the way through the mess and get to the end and see who's on the other side of the line, so to speak.
Alongside the Allen Institute, researchers from Princeton University and Baylor College of Medicine were also involved in the project.
It definitely inspires a sense of awe, just like looking at pictures of the galaxies and things. You get a sense of how small you are relative to the universe. You look at these kinds of pictures of the brain and you get a sense of how complicated you are. We're looking at, one tiny part, 1/500th of a mouse's brain. And the beauty and complexity that you can see in these actual neurons and the hundreds of millions of connections between them.
Unraveling the map and the circuits of the brain could one day shed light on Alzheimer's disease, autism, or other disorders. NTD News.
Shifting gears, an ancient culture from nearly 2,000 years ago is in the spotlight. Next week, an exhibition showcasing the lives of women in Rome's famous buried city will open to the public in southern Italy. And the statue of one woman is the star of the show for her mysterious role and even a potential love story. This pair of nearly life-size statues was found last July in the Pompeii Archaeological Park. The female statue is adorned with accessories compared to her male counterpart's rather simple look. The park's director told The Guardian that the woman could have been a priestess. That's partly because she's holding laurel leaves, and in ancient Roman culture, priests and priestesses used laurel leaves to purify spaces. The statue also wears a wedding ring, leading researchers to boldly suggest that she and the male figure could have been a married couple. As for other decorations, the woman wears a special amulet called a lunula, carved in the shape of a crescent moon. It was something typically worn by unmarried maidens in ancient Rome. Researchers linked this to her possible priestess role. This pair was carved into the walls of Pompeii during the 1st or 2nd century BCE. This period is also known as the late Republican era in Rome, when Julius Caesar began transforming the Republic into what would become the Roman Empire. Theatergoers in the capital of Colorado explain why they keep returning to see Shen Yun performing arts. Audience members describe it as an uplifting and spiritual experience. NTD's David Lamb reports, and NTD is a proud media sponsor of Shen Yun.
This is the Buell Theater in Denver, Colorado, where Shen Yun graced the stage for 5 performances from April 3rd to the 6th. Now, he spoke to folks, including 2 people that came from New Mexico, which is a 5-hour drive. Let's find out why.
The whole show is really incredible, the way, and the timing. I'm always amazed by the timing, because it's like you're seeing a movie plus live dancers at the same time, and the synchronization between the two is just perfection.
It's divine, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a spiritual experience, you know. Aesthetics wavelength alone can heal, right? All the sounds, frequency, music.
Spectacular. You know, I've actually seen it once before. That's why I wanted to come back with my mother. But yeah, their elegance, their strength, their stamina, the originality in the costumes just are an amazing mixture.
Shen Yun Performing Arts was founded in New York. Its mission, reviving traditional, divinely inspired Chinese culture that was almost destroyed under communist rule.
Part of the reason I come here is because I support the effort to bring back tradition. It's like integrity and personal values, family. These things are extremely important.
Everything there is truth, right? This is how we heal ourselves. This is how we heal our planet. This is why we can get along together.
The patrons in Colorado's capital said they left with a profound feeling.
You know, ultimately, it's that beautiful message that there's something within each of us, which is divine, which is higher than what we're seeing and doing each day. And the dancers just bring that out in a beautiful way, with also heart and humanity and humor as well.
I always feel uplifted by seeing those parts of the performance. Yeah, I'm very uplifted by the whole show. And that's why I come back, because it just makes me feel good.
NTD News, Denver, Colorado.
Easter is just 1 week away, and 2 chocolatiers in England are celebrating the occasion with a sweet, super-sized treat. Sitting almost 3 feet tall and weighing in at an enormous 99 pounds, the Cadbury World theme park is calling it the world's biggest Cadbury cream egg ever.
We make the egg in 2 halves. We piped in, or Dawn piped in the wrapper separately. This is white chocolate, and then we filled the egg half and half, combined the 2 together, and then poured in the fondant to complete the creation.
The key about this creation that makes it super special is the fact that we've got the secret recipe for the fondant inside. So although there has been other eggs made claiming to be a Cadbury's cream egg, ours is officially a Cadbury cream egg.
It took chocolatiers Terry Collins and Don Jenks 2 days to make. Cadbury World's team of 30 chocolatiers produce over 60,000 handmade chocolates every year, from edible shoes to footballs and teapots. The egg will be on display at the theme park through April 27th. A one-of-a-kind trading card game is reaching across generations. A small town in Japan is honoring upstanding men in the community by creating trading cards based on them. Pokemon cards have made their way around the world, but kids in one small town in Japan are chasing another kind of collectible, a new series of trading cards. These don't depict fantasy characters or baseball stars, but rather oji-san, middle-aged and older men from the local community of Saitosho. And Japanese kids are racing to catch them all. Each card is handmade and features a local oji-san and an elemental type. While they were created for collecting, they've quickly morphed into a competitive game. The creator of the game told a local news outlet, since the card game went viral, so many kids are starting to look up to these men as heroic figures. Given Japan has one of the oldest and fastest aging populations, she wanted to create a way for the elders and youngsters to connect. Youth participation at the center has since doubled for those eager to catch or meet them all. And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.